This December, in the very heart of the European Union, proud patriots and thinkers will gather for a decisive conversation. Today, let's talk to Ralph Schoellhammer about one of the topics at our conference, patriotic economics, reforming a sick continent. Ralph, welcome. You've said Europe is the sick man of the world's economy. What do you mean by that?
Well, what I mean by this is that failed policies of the past created conditions within Europe that will not allow us to sustain the prosperity and economic role we played in the last century and the century before.
Mm-hmm. Now, let's talk about why this happened. How did Europe go from being an engine of innovation and prosperity to a continent afraid of its own success?
Misguided ideologies and apathy. Right, the misguided ideologies would particularly be the green ideologies coming up in the 1960s, which completely undermined heavy industry and energy policy. And apathy is the dying of the European entrepreneur.
Some say the answer is more Brussels, more green spending, more integration. Others say the system is broken. Can you tell us what your view is?
Well, the system is broken, and I think we have to be realistic about the possibilities in the near future. Rebuilding the European economy will also mean to cut some ties with China. I think it will mean to get closer to the United States. I like to say the future of Europe is to be Athens to Washington's Rome. I know this is something not many people like to hear in Europe, but I think at the moment this is the only possibility we have. So strategic autonomy, also in the economic realm, is not possible, at least not for the next 5 to 10 years.
You speak of patriotic economics. What does that look like in practice? How does it differ from what we have today?
Well, I think patriotic economics is a very basic concept describing that the economy of a country is supposed to be primarily focused with the citizens of the state in question. Now, this goes into two sectors. One, the economy is not supposed to serve the planet, right? This would be climate policy. So we sacrifice our economy in the name of climate. But it also goes to the welfare state. To give you a quick example, in Austria and Germany, more than 50% of basic welfare spending goes to people without an Austrian or German passport. This is a lethal flaw because it also creates a sense of unfairness and unequal distribution within the population. So people then turn away not just from the economic system, they turn away from the state and the political system itself. So this is not just a threat to the economy, it's a threat to the political system and democracy.
When we talk about bringing industry back home, about reindustrialization, what does that mean for ordinary Europeans who feel left behind by globalization?
Well, the first question we have to ask is, what is GDP for? Right? What kind of industry do we want to bring back? Is it supposed to be artificial intelligence, or do we want to, make t-shirts and sneakers? And this is a core question, because this will then define the trade policy of the European Union. It's fine if our t-shirts are made in Vietnam. It is not fine if our pharmaceuticals are made in India and if our machinery is made in China. So what we will then have to do is very similar to the United States, create trade deals, create trade barriers, create tariff regimes that will support the industries we believe are necessary. As I said, what is GDP for? And allow trade only in those areas where we don't want to produce the things that we get anyways.
Finally, what's the first step towards reforming this sick continent that you've diagnosed? What must political leaders and citizens do differently?
Well, I think the first thing that has to happen is that politics has to realign itself with reality. And what by reality, I mean the laws of physics. If you listen to Ursula von der Leyen and she still drones on about the Green New Deal and renewables, the evidence is in. It is not working. Without coal, without gas, without nuclear, there is no reindustrialization of Europe. And by the way, even when it comes to renewables, we are completely dependent on China. So this is in itself a failing project. And the other point is, of course, bureaucracy needs to be diminished, needs to be reduced, and there have to be some what I would call creative elements as well. Maybe a specific development bank. I mean, that does partially exist, but where you have different interest rates for different projects. So the problem is that the situation is so dire that we would need very competent politicians. We don't have those politicians at the moment.
Ralph Schoellhammer, we'll see you at the battle.
Thank you, John.
Europe is at a crossroads. The choices we make in the next few years will decide whether our continent continues to decline or rediscovers its courage. That's why this December 3rd and 4th, some of the most daring thinkers, leaders and patriots are coming together in Brussels to forge a new path for Europe, one built on serenity, industry and freedom. Join Ralph and other leaders. Join us in Brussels, at the heart of the European Union, for the battle for the soul of Europe, the most significant, conservative, intellectual event of the year. Be part of the conversation that will shape Europe's future. Join us in the fight.